Will Pariah complete his goal of spreading the Great Darkness across the DC Universe as we know it? Well, let's hop into the pages of Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue number 4 and find out together, shall we? So then, starting things off, let's address the major elephant in the room, and that is, yes, they changed the title midway through the series. You are not imagining things. It is now called Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, which, if you ask me, is actually kind of a spoiler for the big finale of this issue, but I digress. As we join the book, we pick up with Hal Jordan, where we left him at the end of the previous issue, and where I can only assume his tie-in book was taking place. He was taken captive by a bunch of his friends, who would become weird, cracked mirror versions of themselves, complete with brand new redesigns that I cannot help but feel are going to make some really excellent action figures one day. Hal ends up getting saved by the appearance of Barry Allen the Flash, who again had managed to escape his own prison over in his own book. Again, I said it before, but I'll say it again, I really feel like I have been reading all the wrong Dark Crisis tie-ins. Apparently Green Lantern and the Flash were the ones where the stuff was actually going on. Flash also goes out of his way to explain to Green Lantern that what we the reader already know, and that is the Justice League are not dead, only trapped in their own little pocket universes where Pariah can drain them of their power and use it to further his evil machinations, whatever those might be. And by the end of the book, we might actually have a better understanding of what that is. Now, back on the main Earth, we see slowly but surely the rest of the good guys are also coming to this realization too of what exactly is going on with the Great Darkness. The Justice Society of America, alongside Mr. Terrific, had come to reinforce John Kent the Superman in his new ragtag version of the Justice League. They say that pockets of dark energy are massing ever since the Justice League disappeared, and it would seem that all of this is connected to Deathstroke, almost like Slade is trying to prepare the way for something. What, they can't exactly be sure. Now, if everything I just said over the last 2 minutes sounded like a lot of clerical, it is, but don't worry, this book actually doesn't forget the human element this time around. In fact, we see Dick Grayson mourning what became of Beast Boy. He's not dead, but he might as well be. It's Alan Scott, Green Lantern, who has to pick Nightwing up and dust him off, saying that there's a whole world of people out there waiting for him to lead. That Deathstroke attacked him personally because he wanted to break his spirit, and by extension, the spirit of the entire DC universe, because, well, we live in a time of legacy and legacy heroes, but Dick Grayson was the original legacy. And honestly, any story that goes out of its way to write a big old love letter to Nightwing, well, that's always gonna get a thumbs up from me. Now, what happened to Black Adam? Well, after John Superman and his new team of young heroes refused to play ball with Teth Adam's darker, more brutal tactics, the dictator of Kahndaq decided to look up the Legion of Doom. Unsurprisingly, the other villains don't actually welcome Black Adam with open arms, and why should they? He's been doing the hero thing for a while now to coincide with his movie. How do they know he's not a mole for the good guys? Adam thinks that they should take the fight to Deathstroke and his secret society of supervillains, and while he may very well be right, as always, Lex Luthor is playing three-dimensional chess over here. In fact, in a wonderful piece of continuity, Luthor reveals that him and Vandal Savage know more about what's going on with the Great Darkness and the Infinite Earths than anyone else, and why shouldn't they? Because they were part of the totality at the end of the last big Crisis event, and then they just kind of wandered off and everyone pretended like it didn't happen. Cheetah also makes a fun meta little crack about how they could very easily take on Deathstroke and his team of also-rans. Again, she mentions a lot of new faces on her own team too, but there's only one new face, and that is Punchline, which to me reads as a huge indictment of DC's inability to create brand new villains. I mean, think about it. John's new Justice League team had like 12 new heroes on it, but the Legion of Doom only has one new noteworthy villain, and everyone else is still the lineup from Super Friends, for crying out loud. Now, before the Legion of Doom can ultimately make up their minds, they end up coming under attack by Deathstroke and his society anyway, because, well, no duh, obviously that's what was gonna happen. Black Adam is the first to notice, though, that there's something different about them, and that's because they're wearing the dark chains of the Dark Army. If you'll remember all the way back in issue 1, those very same chains were on Darkseid and Doomsday, subverting their will for the Great Darkness and Pariah. And hey, speaking of darkness, and I feel like I'm saying that word a hell of a lot in this series of videos, Alan Scott decides to lead Nightwing and the other heroes to have themselves a little one-on-one meeting with Justice League Dark. The team is mostly in shambles following the end of their own book and the death of Zatanna, but hey, they got a brand new Swamp Thing now, and in fact, original Alan Moore looking Swamp Thing says that he actually has some insight into the whole Great Darkness because, well, he was there the first time it was a big issue. Swampy says that the Great Darkness is actually acting out of character, that it's a primal force, not unlike the Green. It's neither good nor evil, it just craves nothingness. But here, the Great Darkness actually seems to be working towards something, almost like it's been corrupted. More on that in a minute, though. As we return to the battle between the Secret Society and the Legion of Doom, Luthor and his team actually end up taking an early lead. In fact, Lex goes out of his way to verbally eviscerate Slade, basically saying that he was never meant to be a top-tier Crisis-level villain, that he's always been a mercenary, a gun-for-hire, a shit-kicker who lacks any real vision. Honestly, I agree, though ultimately Deathstroke does get the final laugh, as it's at that point him and his men start vomiting up more black chains that end up ensnaring Lex and the rest of the Legion of Doom. This apparently being everything Pariah needed to give him that last little burst of energy to complete his ultimate plan, which, if you couldn't tell from the title, was to recreate that which he once destroyed. Yes, that's right, the Infinite Earths return to the DC Universe. And so that was Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue number 4, everybody, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel like the real story only began right here in this issue, and that everything else has just been prologue until this point. To the issue's credit, Joshua Williamson, continuity buff and lore hound, was back in full effect, something I felt the other issues were missing. I'm glad to see him tie together so many loose strings. Going in, Williamson made the lofty promise that this story really would be one about legacy and that it would touch on every corner of the DC Universe, and it actually does feel like that's beginning to happen now with the inclusion of Justice League Dark. There's also definitely something to be said about a Crisis story having the big universe rewriting part happen in the middle instead of at the very end for a change. Like, the Infinite Earths are back now for realsies, and maybe this story will get to explore what that actually means and how it's going to impact all the different characters moving forward. Pariah also becomes a little bit more interesting as a villain this issue, with the insinuation that maybe he wasn't lying when he said that he's controlling the Great Darkness and not the other way around, and that what he aimed to do with the amazing power to recreate the Infinite Earths was ultimately not that much of an evil plot when you stop and think about it. It's ultimately a man trying to make amends for the worst sin he ever committed. I will say I was starting to lose interest in Dark Crisis, but this issue did a pretty good job wheeling me back in, so for that I would give it a very positive 8 out of 10.
Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cape Joel again, thanking you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not check out my Amazon link down in the description. Yes, that's right, the Cape Joel channel officially has its own Amazon storefront now. You can pick up a comic or anything else for that matter, and if you did, you'd really be helping me and the channel. So with that out of the way everyone, I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.